In the beginning, before the breath of man stirred the dust, and before the rivers sang across the Edenic lands, there existed the presence of the Most High. In the vast emptiness, where time had no age and light had no shadow, a divine mystery unfolded. The scrolls of the ancients speak not of one name, but two, Elohim and YHWH. Both names called upon the same essence, yet each held a different revelation of the divine. Elohim was the name of majesty, of power, of the Creator who spoke galaxies into being. In Genesis 1:1, in the beginning Elohim created the heavens and the earth. This was the name the heavens knew, plural in form, yet singular in authority. It whispered of a God beyond comprehension, wrapped in divine plurality, a council of unity, a mystery of oneness cloaked in cosmic sovereignty. Shadow appeared later in the intimate breath of man's story. In Genesis 2:4, when the earth had been shaped and man had received breath, the name changed. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created, in the day that YHWH Elohim made the earth and the heavens. The Tetragrammaton, YHWH, was a name unspoken, ineffable, stripped of vowels, untouchable by lips. It was the covenant name, the name of relationship. It was the whisper Moses heard in the burning bush. But few understood this divine duality. Many read the scrolls and thought the names were interchangeable. They were not. Elohim ruled the cosmos, Otwar walked among men. Elohim formed structure, Otwar formed spirit. Elohim thundered from Sinai, Otwar wrote laws on hearts. In the days before Abraham, the people of the land knew of gods, many names, many images. Yet Abraham heard one call. It was not just a God, it was Elohim, the singular plural, calling him out of Ur to walk into the unknown. Yet when the covenant was sealed and the stars became his descendants, another name echoed through the night, YHWH, the personal God who binds himself to promises, who weeps with man, who walks in the cool of the garden. Centuries passed, prophets came, kings rose and fell. The scholars of Israel, the scribes of Ezra's time, began to tremble at the name. So sacred was YHWH, they ceased to pronounce it. Instead, they said Adonai, Lord, but the name behind the veil remained. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, a breath in and out, YHWH, a name made of breath itself. Some began to ask, why does the Torah begin with Elohim, but the covenant name is YHWH? Are they different? Is there a war in heaven? The wise knew better. It was not war, it was revelation. The same God, through different names, unveiled himself in layers. But the darkness of men's hearts would soon distort what was meant to be understood in wonder. A scribe named Malachi, living in the days of the judges, began to write scrolls from oral tradition. He was the first to ask, what if Elohim and YHWH are not the same? He spoke aloud what others feared to think. He began to write tales of two gods, planting confusion into the ears of the people. A dangerous thought was born, that perhaps there was a war in the heavens, Elohim versus YHWH, and the seeds of division were planted. But in the heavenly places, the divine watched. The voice that thundered and the voice that whispered were the same. But the time was coming when man would seek to divide what was whole. The hidden name, with its eternal meaning, would be forgotten by many, until one chosen soul would be called to uncover it once again. The story of names was just beginning. The scroll of Malachi spread like fire in dry fields. At first it was hidden, passed only between curious scribes and wandering thinkers. But whispers have wings, and soon his writings reached the ears of the learned and the leaders. In his scroll, titled The Division of the Divine, Malachi claimed that Elohim was the ancient creator, distant and aloof, while YHWH was a younger, jealous deity who came after, seeking control over man's soul. It was heresy, but it was wrapped in logic. Malachi pointed to the text itself. Elohim created the world in 6 days, but it is YHWH Elohim who forms man from dust and walks in the garden. Are they not different beings? He wrote. To the untrained heart, it made sense, and that was its danger. The priests at Shiloh gathered. The Council of 12 convened. They read Malachi's scroll with trembling hands, then burned it in a public fire. But the ideas could not be burned. They had already taken root. People began to ask forbidden questions. If YHWH is not Elohim, then who do we worship? Who is greater? Who hears our prayers? Some among the people favored Elohim, the distant creator, majestic and untouched by human mess. We serve the one who made the stars, not the one who gives laws and punishments, they said. They built quiet places of worship on high hills, offering praise only to Elohim, refusing to speak the name YHWH. Others clung to YHWH, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the one who delivered from Egypt, who spoke at Sinai, who forgave sins. Elohim may have made the heavens, they said, but YHWH walks with us through the fire. And so the people were split. In secret, the high priest Eli sent a letter to an old prophet who lived in the mountains, a man called Ezrael. It was said he had once seen visions of both names in the heavens and had spoken with the angel Shemiel, guardian of the names. The letter read, "O seer of the hidden, the land is breaking. One name is becoming two. Bring us the truth before the people destroy themselves." Ezrael read the letter in silence. Then he walked to the mouth of his cave and gazed at the night sky. Stars burned above him, created by Elohim. The wind whispered across the cliffs, filled with the breath of YHWH. He murmured, "They are not enemies. They are the same voice. One reveals power, the other love. One is the hammer, the other the hand." But the people would not understand unless they were shown. So Ezrael gathered his staff, his scrolls, and a vial of sacred oil. He began the long journey to Shiloh. Along the way, he taught those he met. To shepherds and farmers, he explained the names with stories. Elohim is like the sun, he said, brilliant, distant, powerful. YHWH is like the fire on your hearth, warm, close, consuming. But both come from the same light. Still, there were those who hardened their hearts. Malachi had fled, but his followers, now called the Sons of Division, met in secret, planning to write new scrolls that would spread across tribes. Their goal was not worship, but power. For if the people could be convinced to choose between gods, then the sons could rule by fear. The Lord in heaven saw all. And from the throne of glory, the one whose name is both Elohim and YHWH spoke, "My people have forgotten my unity. I must show them my face once again." And so a vision was prepared, a meeting of heavens and earth, a test that would shake both priest and prophet. In the silence of the night, Ezrael received a message from the angel Shemiel. "You must enter the valley of hidden names. There you will find the meaning that was lost." Ezrael bowed his head. The journey to the valley of Hashem had begun. The valley lay far beyond the borders of Judah, beyond the plains of Reuben, past the river Arnon, where the land turned to stone and silence. It was a place few dared travel, not because of beasts or brigands, but because of the presence that hung there. Legends called it the Emek Hashem, the Valley of the Name. The ancient ones said that long before Abraham walked the earth, before Eden bloomed, the voice of the Almighty once touched the earth there. Israel traveled alone. His journey took 7 days and 7 nights. He ate only dried figs and drank dew gathered from leaves at dawn. At every turn he repeated the Shema, not out of fear, but to center his soul. "Hear, O Israel, YHWH is our Elohim, YHWH is one." He whispered the prayer until the words felt like fire on his tongue. On the 8th day, he arrived at the edge of the valley. It was unlike any place he had seen. No birds flew there. The air hummed with unseen rhythm. Stones were arranged in natural circles, as if the land itself remembered some long-forgotten ceremony. Ezrael removed his sandals and stepped into the valley barefoot. With every step, a strange heat rose from the ground, not of fire, but of presence. Suddenly a voice came, not from the sky, not from the earth, but from within him. "Ezrael, son of dust, seer of secrets, why have you come?" Ezrael knelt. To know the unity of the name, to end the division. A great wind blew through the valley, though no leaves moved. The ground opened before him like the mouth of a cave. He entered. Inside, he found a chamber made not by hands. Its walls shimmered with inscriptions in the ancient tongue. Not Hebrew, not Aramaic, but the first language, the one Adam spoke before the fall. The words danced like flame. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Then he heard it. A double voice, layered yet one. It spoke in thunder and in whisper. I am that I am. I am Elohim, the Creator, the Architect, the Almighty. I am YHWH, the breath, the covenant, the near one. You seek to understand me through names, but I have no beginning and no end. My name is not letters, it is being. Ezreal fell flat on his face. But why did you allow the confusion? Why did you allow your people to divide you in thought? Because they are not ready for unity until they walk through the fire of division. Then the walls lit up with images. The garden, the flood, Sinai, the burning bush, the temple, the exile, the Messiah not yet born. Ezreal saw how Elohim stretched across eternity, while YHWH walked beside man in time. One name for power, one for mercy, one for justice, one for grace. Together they revealed the whole. The hidden meaning of my name, the voice said, is not in pronunciation, but in revelation. YHWH cannot be spoken rightly unless the speaker's breath aligns with my will. My name is made of breath, the inhale and exhale of life. Israel wept. He now understood. Every time a man breathes, he says the name. Yod, the inhale. Ha, the pause. Vav, the exhale. Ha, the rest. It was not just a name, it was existence itself. Then the voice gave Ezreal a charge. Return to the people. Tell them not to choose between names. Tell them I am both, and neither. Tell them my name is not to divide, but to make whole. Those who follow the lie of division will fall, but those who call upon the full name, in spirit and in truth, will live. The vision ended. The chamber darkened. Ezreal stumbled out, his hair white as snow, though his eyes burned with light. He had seen the unity of the name. Now he would face the division of men. Ezreal descended from the valley of hidden names, forever changed. The lines on his face spoke of age, but his steps were strong, like a man reborn. He had seen the source, the unity beneath the names. Now he carried a fire in his spirit that no man could quench. His staff burned with carvings he had not placed, glowing faintly with the 4 sacred letters. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. When he reached the land of Shiloh, he found it torn in two. The followers of Elohim had built a high altar on Mount Zophim. They wore white robes, chanted celestial prayers, and focused only on the grandeur of the Creator, the stars, the seas, the heavens. They no longer spoke of covenants, laws, or moral obedience. He is too great to be bothered with men, they said. The followers of YHWH, however, had built a low sanctuary near the Jordan. They emphasized nearness, sacrifice, and judgment. They clung to the burning bush in Sinai. He is with us in suffering, they said. He walks in our fields and hears our cries. But they feared the power of the stars, rejecting the vastness of Elohim. 2 altars, 1 people, torn between the sky and the soil. Israel walked into the center of Shiloh during the Feast of Trumpets. All the tribes were gathered, though they no longer celebrated together. He stood at the edge of the temple court, raised his staff, and cried aloud, Shema Yisrael! The crowd froze. Hear, O Israel, YHWH is our Elohim, YHWH is one. Murmurs rose. Some shouted, He is of YHWH. Others, No, he invokes Elohim. A few recognized him. That is Ezreal, the prophet of the old paths. Ezreal raised his hand for silence. His voice was firm and filled with fire. Fools, you divide the name of the one who cannot be divided. You have built 2 altars, but the God who breathed life into Adam is the same who thundered on Sinai. Elohim is YHWH. YHWH is Elohim. The priests of the Elohim order stepped forward. Their leader Abin spoke. Then why are there 2 names, prophet? Why not 1 word from the beginning? Ezreal answered, Because you could not yet understand his fullness. Just as a child knows his father as strong, and only later as merciful. So have we grown through revelation. The name changes not because God changes, but because we grow. Then the elders of the YHWH sanctuary approached. Why then does he say, I am you, your God? If Elohim was already known before, they asked. Ezrael lifted his staff and the carvings glowed. Because Yah is the breath that entered man. It is the closeness of Elohim. You are not ready to see that power and mercy are not opposites, but one face seen from different sides. Suddenly a wind swept through the square. Fire appeared over the staff, forming the 4 Hebrew letters in the sky. The people gasped. The 2 high priests fell to their knees. And Ezrael declared, the hidden meaning of the name is this: being itself. Every breath you take is a prayer to the one who is. YHWH is not a name you speak. It is the life within you. Elohim is not a power you fear. He is the hand that shapes your days. One child stepped forward. Then why do we fight? Israel knelt before the child. Because men prefer their part of truth rather than the whole. But the time is coming when the veil will be torn. Then he turned to the crowd and proclaimed, let the 2 altars be torn down. Build only one, and on it place no name, for no stone can hold him. Instead, write his name on your hearts. The true temple is coming. Some wept, some resisted, but the seeds were planted. The sons of division, hearing of Ezrael's return, gathered in the shadows. Their leader, a man once called Malachiah, now cloaked in secrecy, said, this prophet must be silenced, or our reign will end. But the heavens were not silent. A sign was coming, a shaking in the earth, and the truth would be tested. Ezrael stayed in Shiloh for 40 days and nights, teaching in the temple courts and in the fields. He spoke not only to priests and scholars, but to shepherds, children, and widows. To each he revealed the unity of the name, not through argument, but through understanding. You see the sun and call it light, but it is also fire and also heat. One thing, many names. So too with Elohim and YHWH. One essence, different expressions. Yet even as hearts were turning, danger crept in. The sons of division, now called the Netzarim of the 2 thrones, had built a secret council beneath the ruins of Gezer. Malachiah, their leader, wore black robes and a golden mask. He had written a new scroll, one of blasphemy, declaring Elohim and YHWH to be rival gods, locked in eternal war for the souls of men. In his scroll, he described Elohim as the God of law and order, and YHWH as the God of chaos and rebellion. It was clever. It was seductive. It appealed to men's fears and pride. Malachiah whispered to his followers, Israel has seen visions, but I have seen the truth. The universe is ruled by war, not unity. Let man choose his God, and we shall rule over the torn. The scroll was called the War of Names, and it was set to be read aloud in 3 cities at once, Hebron, Dan, and Bethel. The plan was to start a theological war, a civil rupture, to destroy Ezrael's teaching. But the prophet was not unprepared. On the 39th night, Ezrael received another vision. In his dream, a tree burned, but was not consumed. From the flame, the angel Shemiel appeared again and said, the fire of lies is coming. But you must write the scroll of truth. Take ink and parchment. Write the unity of the name in the tongue of Adam. Hide it in fire, and it shall endure. Ezrael woke before dawn and took his staff to the Temple Mount. There, on the altar ruins, he laid out a clean parchment. He mixed ink with oil, ash from the valley of the name, and a drop of blood from his own finger. Then he began to write. He did not write in Hebrew. He did not write in Aramaic. He wrote in Lashon Ganuz, the hidden language, the first tongue. Each letter burned as he inscribed it. The words could not be spoken by human mouth, only felt in the soul. He wrote, I am the one who is. Before the mountains I breathe, I am not 2. I am not many, I am. My name is in your breath. My throne is not far. My mercy and might are one river. You shall not divide me. When the scroll was finished, it glowed with fire, but was not consumed. Ezrael placed it inside a clay vessel and sealed it with wax formed from the valley's sacred trees. Then he hid it beneath the sanctuary, not to be found until the day of great shaking. The next day he called a gathering. From all tribes people came. Even leaders of the altars arrived, including Abin and Elior, who had once stood on opposite sides. Ezrael raised his staff and said, "I have written the truth in the tongue of heaven. You will not read it now, but when fire and lies consume this land, the scroll will remain, and those who seek me with one heart will find it." But even as he spoke, word reached Shiloh. Malachiah's followers had set fires in Dan. Blood had been spilled in Hebron. In Bethel, the scroll of the War of Names was read, and people turned against each other. A holy war had begun. Israel wept. "O Israel, you have divided the name that gives you life. You have carved the infinite into idols of fear." But he also smiled through his tears. "Yet a remnant will remain. One day a child will find the scroll, and the name will be spoken again, not in tongue, but in spirit." And so he vanished from the city. Some say he returned to the valley. Others say he was taken up in a chariot of light. But the scroll remained, waiting, watching, burning with truth. Years passed, then decades. The teachings of Ezrael faded like dew in the noonday sun, remembered only by a few elders and written in half-buried scrolls. But the war of the names raged on. The sons of division, now a growing sect called the House of Duality, had spread their scrolls across the land. Cities fell into theological confusion. Some worshipped Elohim alone, declaring that he had abandoned YHWH for becoming too familiar with mankind. Others praised only YHWH, claiming he had overthrown Elohim to rule with intimacy, not sovereignty. Altars were built, then burned. Synagogues split. Priests turned against priests. Sacred feasts were kept in opposing ways. Two different versions of Genesis were taught to children. One began with Elohim alone, the other with Hush as the rescuer from an oppressive creator. In the city of Kedemah, a tragic event took place. A family, father a devout Elohist, mother a faithful Yahwist, were stoned by both sides for refusing to renounce either name. Their son, only 7 years old, escaped into the night carrying nothing but a broken tablet with both names etched side by side, Elohim, you. He would later become known as Shalem, meaning peace. Meanwhile, the scroll of Ezrael, hidden beneath the sanctuary of Shiloh, lay buried in silence. But the land was no longer silent. Earthquakes began to shake the foundations of the divided altars. Drought struck the regions loyal to duality, famine crept in, yet neither the Elohists nor the Yahwists would repent. Then came a sign. A great fire descended upon the high place of Mount Zophim, where the Elohists worshipped the Creator. It consumed the altar entirely. No rain could stop it. The flames formed 4 letters in the smoke, YHWH. Days later, a river near Jericho turned to blood. The followers of YHWH cried out. But in the waters reflected by moonlight appeared the name Elohim in rippling form. The people began to tremble. Could it be that Azrael had spoken the truth? In the midst of this fear, a group of Levites remembered the prophet's words. They gathered secretly and said, "If the scroll he wrote remains, then there is hope." These men, once divided by doctrine, came together and called themselves the Sons of the Breath, B'nai Hanashama. They began a quiet search. They dug beneath the ruins of the Shiloh temple, brushing away centuries of dust and ash. At the 7th layer of stone, they found it, a clay vessel unbroken. Inside, the scroll still burned with hidden fire. The letters danced in a language none could read, not Hebrew, not Greek, but pure meaning. Only one among them, an old man named Helek, had studied the ancient tongue of Adam in secret. As he read the scroll aloud, something strange happened. The wind began to blow in rhythm with his voice. The breath of the valley seemed to join the words. "I am the one who is not two. I am the flame that creates and the breath that comforts. I am Elohim. I am you. I am the one." The Levites fell to their knees. The ground shook slightly, not in fear, but as if the earth itself was sighing in relief. Word spread. People from both sides began to travel to Shiloh to hear the reading of the scroll. The divided altars were abandoned. The scroll was not shown to all, for it burned too brightly, but its message was told from mouth to mouth. The name cannot be split. He who divides God divides himself. And then from the crowd, a young man stepped forward, tall, silent, with eyes like deep water. It was Shalem, the boy who had once escaped with the broken tablet. He held it high. One side read, Elohim, the other, YHWH. The crack down the middle was sealed with golden resin. He spoke only one sentence. He is one, and we are his breath. The people wept. But darkness had not yet given up. Far away, Malachi still lived. Older now, hidden in a cave of smoke and false fire. When he heard the scroll had been found, he swore an oath. Then I shall call upon the ancient name, the one older than both Elohim and YHWH, and from chaos I will rule. A final confrontation was drawing near. The breath and the flame would face the storm. The winds howled across the hills of Ephraim as darkness gathered. Black clouds, thick with the stench of burnt incense and blood offerings, hovered over the ancient caves of Tel Harmat, where Malachi, the heretic scribe, made his last stand. He was no longer the man who once questioned with curiosity. His heart had become a furnace of pride and vengeance. In the shadows he whispered invocations not found in Torah or scroll. He sought to awaken the ancient power he called the Forgotten Voice, claiming it predated even Elohim and YHWH, a formless chaos god of old. If unity is your truth, Ezreal, he spat, then I will summon the truth of separation. The universe began in war, and to war it shall return. In the ruined sanctuary of Shiloh, Shalem stood before the people, now grown, a man marked by grace. The broken tablet he once carried as a boy was now embedded in the new altar, a simple stone with no name, only light. The sons of the breath had restored the temple not with gold or curtains, but with humility and fire. There were no more chants to only Elohim or only YHWH. Instead, every worshiper breathed, each inhale and exhale a silent invocation of the name that cannot be divided. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. On the seventh day of the month of Revelation, Malachi descended from the north with a host of followers clothed in black smoke. His army bore banners not of names, but of symbols, spirals, blades, and shattered crowns. They marched to the gates of Shiloh, chanting, "Name him or divide him, but you shall not remain in between." The people did not raise swords. They raised breath. At the front stood Shalem, holding nothing but the staff of Ezreal, passed down to him by the sons of the breath. The glowing letters, RTHWH, burned through the air. The moment of truth had come. Malachi stepped forward. "Speak, boy. If you say Elohim alone, I shall spare your temple. If you say YHWH alone, I shall give you rule over 10 cities. But if you say both, I will call down the ancient storm." Shalem closed his eyes. He listened not to the threats, but to the rhythm of the earth, the birds, the breeze, the stillness within. Then he opened his mouth and breathed. Not a word, not a sentence. Just breathe. It echoed like thunder. A wind swept the valley. The people followed, all inhaling, all exhaling. And together they spoke the name the only way it was ever meant to be spoken. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. At that moment fire rained down, but not to destroy, it cleansed. Malachi raised his hand to curse, but his voice cracked, his mouth twisted, his scrolls caught flame. The very god of division he sought to summon turned on him, for it was not a god, but chaos, unshaped and wild, never to be controlled. The sky split, and from it came a voice, the same double voice Ezreal had once heard in the valley. I am one. I cannot be divided." The storm fell silent. The black-cloaked armies scattered in fear. The scrolls of war turned to ash. Malachi vanished, consumed in the fire of his own making. The temple stood. The people stood. The name remained. That day became known as Yom Hashem Echad, the day of the one name. It was not marked with songs or sacrifices, but with silence and breath. Generations passed, and though empires rose and fell, the people remembered. They taught their children not just to speak the names, but to live them, to see Elohim in creation, to feel YHWH in compassion, to breathe the unity of both. The final words of the scroll of Ezrael were carved in stone above the altar. He is not far. He is not divided. He is in your breath. And so the name once hidden became the name always known, not on the tongue, but in the soul.